We're ready on my end, Madam Mayor, when it comes time.
Okay.
And all 6 council members that are present.
Okay. Good evening, Jeremy.
Hi there, Madam Mayor. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Nice to see you.
Good to see you here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We are now called to order. Roll call, Monica.
Councilwoman Wickenhagen,
Here.
Councilwoman Mattson,
Here.
Councilwoman Vargas is not present. Councilman Peterson, Councilman Bell,
Here.
Councilman Costello,
Here.
Councilman Carlson,
Here.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for
Madam Mayor,
prayer. Oh, yes.
you have a council member
we
who's
do.
not in attendance.
Sorry. We have Suzanne, who is not attending tonight. Do we have a motion to excuse? Roger, and do we have a second? Russ, so it's been moved by Roger, seconded by Russ to excuse Suzanne from the meeting tonight. All those in favor with a show of hands? And opposed? Thank you. It's unanimous. She is excused. Okay, so please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for prayer. Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by Kevin tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We pray. Eternal Lord, ruler of all, graciously regard those who have been set in a position of authority among us, that guided by your Spirit, they may be high in purpose, wise in counsel, firm in good resolution, and unwavering in duty, and that under them we might be governed quietly and peaceably. We pray that you would prosper the business of our city, that they might serve our community and bring people together to enjoy the fellowship that we have here. Bring a sense of calm, that when there are disagreements, that we might listen, learn, and bring resolution to any conflict that may arise. Bless our schools as they end another school year of learning. It has been a difficult time to navigate the restrictions imposed due to COVID-19. We pray that you would bring an end to this virus among us. We thank you that you have provided a vaccine for this virus, and we pray for its effectiveness, that we might not have to deal with this plague in the future. Bring this meeting today, bless this meeting today as our leaders work through the issues of the day. Give them wisdom, patience, and perseverance to tackle the problems facing us so that we might live in peace and harmony together. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Agenda changes, we have none. Public appearances, introductions, and presentations. We have Katrina Hinkle from the Downtown Association.
Hey, good evening, everyone. There's lots going on. We have cleanup day coming up Saturday. Check-ins at 9 a.m. at the Civic Center in the parking lot. So come on down and see us. Bring any gloves, tools, anything you need or want to use to help clean up weed. Just live in our town. There's a few shrubs that need to be trimmed, just different stuff. So we definitely need volunteers for that. Then the next weekend on the 22nd, we have a rummage sale to benefit our design committee, which are the ones, that's the committee responsible for the planters, for the facade and beautification grants, just for any of the, you know, the stuff that helps our town look really good. And we need volunteers to help set up for that and to run that event. We also need stuff donated. So If you have something you want to donate, I'll pick it up or I'll meet you at the old Wells Fargo building and we can store it there. That's where the sale will be. And that's 9 a.m. on the 22nd is when the doors open for that sale. We have Sip and Stroll and Art Walk coming up on June 19th, same day as Hot Rods on First. We're really excited for that event. Finally, you know, something kind of fun coming to Selah after a year and a half, it feels like, of nothing. We definitely need volunteers for that, but we need ticket sales above that. So please be watching social media for the Eventbrite link. Tickets are $20 if you buy ahead. They're $25 at the door, and we will be available the day of Hot Rods on First. We'll be out and about selling tickets, so if you miss your opportunity before, we'll be there. And then we're still working on our utility box wraps. We're hoping to have that ready to go the same day as Hot Rods on First and Sip and Stroll. So lots going on. Is there any questions? Well, thank you all for your support, and I hope you have a good meeting.
Thank you, Katrina. Next, we have Paul Nagel McNaughton from Comprehensive Mental Health. He's going to give us a presentation on mental health.
Thank you for inviting me tonight and for some awareness around May is Mental Health Month. And I believe you've got a proclamation tonight as well, proclaiming May is Mental Health Month. I just have a few slides. I want to talk with you a little bit about the importance of mental health, and going to find the right button to share here. Okay. So May is Mental Health Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, and again, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time tonight to acknowledge that and to have a proclamation around May is Mental Health Month. It's been, I'm not sure how many years we've been celebrating May as Mental Health Month, but really kind of drawing attention to the impacts of mental health in our daily lives. What we do know about mental health is it impacts lots of people. We estimate that 1 in 5 individuals are going to experience mental illness during the course of their lifetime. And we know it's become even more important during COVID-19, that the level of anxiety, the level of worry, increased suicidal ideation really has gone up during COVID-19. So again, really appreciate you reaching out to talk with me a little bit about what's going on in terms of mental health and how we can develop some skills in our community members to cope with the stresses that COVID-19 has brought on. One of the obvious things that COVID-19 taught us is that we can't separate our individual health from community health, that what impacts us impacts our whole community. And you're very aware of that in terms of the impacts throughout your community, schools, businesses that this is impacted. And so my physical health, my behavioral health feeds into the community health, and my self-care. How do I, again, promote the whole health of my community by attending to all of those aspects of myself? One of the things, messages we want to get out around May is Mental Health Month is that all health is equal, that behavioral health care, and when I say behavioral health care, I mean mental health treatment as well as substance use treatment. So behavioral health care is health care, that anytime an organ of our body is not working well, we go to the doctor, we seek out treatment, but there's this stigma around mental health and substance use that sometimes prevents people from reaching out. Our organization used to be called Central Washington Comprehensive Mental Health, which was a lot of words, and it didn't really accurately describe what we did anymore because we did a lot more things besides mental health. And so we debated on comprehensive behavioral health as a possible name change, but our board really was committed to that efforts to really do some stigma busting around, again, behavioral healthcare is healthcare. So that's why we changed our name to comprehensive healthcare to treat all aspects of that person. We know it's been a struggle in our communities around COVID-19 and the stay-at-home orders and everything that our community members have gone through in the past year plus. But we also know that the human capacity to respond to trauma and disaster is immense. That the most common response to trauma and disaster is not despair, it's not illness, it's resilience. That resilience is that process of adapting well to those adverse circumstances. What we do know is about 60% of the population is going to respond in a very resilient way. It's very ordinary, it's very common, and it's not extraordinary. It really is something that we can expect from our communities. And being resilient doesn't mean that I don't have difficulties or I don't have distress. It just means I'm better able to respond to the stressors in my environment. And it's not, we sometimes think of resilience maybe as a personality trait, but it really is something that we can grow and develop like any other muscle. And it can be learned, it can be acquired. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of those resources are for developing those muscles in just a few minutes. What's really important right now is that we take time to ask our coworkers, our family members, our neighbors, how are they doing? And also take the time to listen in a caring, compassionate, and curious way. Not just say, how are you? I'm fine, and let that be enough. That we know people have really struggled. We know families that have experienced losses, and they need someone to talk to. And that doesn't have to be a mental health professional. It can be a caring neighbor. It can be a caring friend. And so really take that minute to reach out and say, how are you doing? Oftentimes people are prepared for physical emergencies, medical emergencies, because they've been through first aid training, CPR, basic first aid classes. What we're starting to focus on is making sure that our communities are prepared with these new first aid trainings that are focused more around behavioral health. SAFE is our suicide awareness for everyone training that I'll talk about in a minute. Mental health first aid training, and I'll take a few minutes at the end here to talk about psychological PPE. We've talked about making sure people have masks. We've talked about making sure people have gloves, cleaning supplies, hand washing, but we haven't probably focused as much attention on what is that psychological PPE that people need to protect themselves. So SAFE is suicide awareness for everyone. This is a training that's available to anyone in our communities. We actually have an online one coming up later this month on September 18th. Anyone that wants to register or join for our SAFE presentation can just go to our website, comphc.org. I should have had that on this slide. So you can just Google comprehensive healthcare and it'll be one of the first links that come up. You can go to our events page under news, I think it's under, and get information on our SAFE training that's coming up. We've got a couple other trainings available as well as part of our May is Mental Health Month. We also offer mental health first aid training, which is a basic care and response, most just like physical mental health first aid. You're not going to do surgery after taking CPR first aid, and you're not going to be a mental health professional after taking mental health first aid, but it will prepare you on how to intervene with someone who may be experiencing a mental health crisis. The SAFE training is about 90 minutes to 2 hours. The mental health first aid training is really a full day event, so it's 8 hours. Currently, we're only able to offer it online. There's a 2-hour segment that you do before the training, and then there's a 6-hour online facilitated piece. And anyone that's interested in mental health first aid training can reach out to me, and I'll have my contact information on the final slide. So what is psychological PPE? How do we prepare ourselves to become more resilient? How can we build that muscle in ourselves? The Greater Columbia Accountable Community of Health, in cooperation with the Acoma Health District and Catholic Charities, put together this Practice the Pause material. This material is available through their website. It's available for young kids. It's available in developmentally appropriate materials for high school and for adults. And it really teaches 3 sets of skills: cope, calm, and care. The materials are available on the website for free to anyone that wants to download them for use in schools, churches, anywhere where you think you can use this information to build resiliency skills. The COPE skills, C-O-P-E, are really about the thinking skills. We have thinking, doing, and being skills. The COPE skills are the thinking skills. And this is really teaching people how to kind of take leverage on their emotional responses, their thinking responses, and really shaping how we can respond differently, reclaiming that sense of control that we may have lost during this period of time, and applying that to our own health and wellness. The calm skills are the doing skills. Again, we have thinking, doing, and being skills. This is really about how do I manage my physical response? How do I control my breathing? How do I learn relaxation techniques? How do I learn to be more in the moment and less worrying about the past and the future? So cope, calm, and the final set are the care skills. These are the being skills: connecting, accepting, reasoning, and engaged. So how do we develop a sense of connection to other people, making sure those connections, even in the land of Zoom, are as meaningful as they can be, accepting the change and rather than fighting it, and then really making informed and conscientious decisions about how I spend my time and how I engage in meaningful activities in my community. So cope, calm, and care skills. One other tool that's available that can build on those skills in the Practice the Pause website is the MyStrength app. So this is a MyStrength app or website. And if you go to mystrength.com or download the app on your cell phone, we're providing free access to this app for at least a year to really help people develop those skills that they need to help manage their anxiety, their stress, disruptions in sleep that they may be experiencing. So once you download the app or go to their website, the secret code is Comp Health Community, and it doesn't have to be all in the caps that are there. Just Comp Health Community is the access code to get access to that at charge. It's really, they describe it as a, you go to the gymnasium to build up your physical body. This is a gymnasium for your mind. How do you develop skills around reducing stress, controlling anxiety, managing intense emotions? So these are all skills that you can work on and customize the site to fit your specific needs. It's an evidence-based application based on a cognitive behavioral approach to health and wellness. It really is multi-condition and holistic. It focuses on the whole person, like I talked about at the very beginning. It's a very positive, it has very positive and helpful and hopeful messages built into it. It's kind of like Facebook and other apps in the sense that the more you use it, the more it's personalized for you. So you could like certain topics, like certain activities, and then it will present you with more activities along those lines. So the more you use it, the more personal it becomes for your own personal health and wellness. It's available all the time, 24/7, and your information is safe and secure. We don't get any information for anyone that's using that code. All that code does is give us information on how many people are using the application. So your information is stored in a safe and secure way, and it's not shared back with us at all. The other thing I wanted to remind specifically the city of Selah employees is that you have an employee assistance program. It's designed to be a benefit that is individualized, brief counseling, and it's available to any city of Selah employee, as well as we have an EAP with the Selah School District. So anyone that's an employee of the Selah School District has access to employee assistance program. Again, it's a great opportunity to get some self-care. We're currently doing all of our EAP services through telehealth, so access is easy. You don't have to even come to our building. We're using WebEx, which is a HIPAA-compliant secure communication for all of our telehealth visits. And one of the, again, things we've learned about COVID-19 is that it's impacted everyone, that we're all in this together. And so hopefully breaking down some of those barriers and stigma around mental health that I talked about earlier. So anyone, again, city employees or school district employees can call us to set up that initial appointment through the EAP. This is my contact information, Paul Nagel McNaughton at comphc.org. And again, I appreciate you inviting me tonight to talk a little bit about mental health and its importance in our community, and to give you some information about tools and skills that are out there that we can help support the community as we move through this crisis and build that resilience as we move into a state of recovery. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any questions as well.
Jackie?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Paul, are you able to email your slides to us?
I can.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, if there's nothing else, again, I appreciate you inviting me here tonight and the proclamation on mental health and recognizing that as a significant piece of community health. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us and informing us. Next, we have Jeremy Default.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you tonight. Nice to see some very friendly faces around the table, the virtual table here. I miss our time together as a former Selah City Council member. But I wanted to give you a quick update on the legislative session that ended 2 Sundays ago. We had a pretty big win for the city of Selah. we were able to include some funding for the Crusher Canyon sewer line, and important infrastructure development for our growing city. And it all started with a conversation with my neighbor and friend, Russ Carlson, and talking about some needs that were there at the city of Selah. And then he suggested that I call you, Madam Mayor, which I did. And between myself and Don Wayman, we worked the phones and continued to talk to folks in the House and in the Senate and make sure that that was included in the final capital budget. And it was. So some exciting news. We've got some funding for important infrastructure project in the city of Selah, and appreciate all the help that Don and Russ and you, Sherry, gave in that effort. A couple other things that I'll mention about the legislative session. There were some concerning things that happened in my view. One in particular that will impact the city of Selah, I believe, in the near term, and all cities in Washington state. And that was that drugs, hard drugs, have been legalized in Washington state as of 2023. So there will, you'll be able, if you're a 14-year-old, you won't be able to possess alcohol or tobacco, but you'll be able to possess cocaine and heroin and meth. Not quite sure what some folks are thinking, but that was what happened. It was an outgrowth of the Blake decision, and it's going to have pretty significant impact on our law enforcement community and their ability to keep our community safe. So I know a lot of communities around the state are developing local ordinances to limit and to include their own impact and their own ability to enforce criminal behavior in our state after 2023. And so that maybe that's something that has been discussed in your conversations as well. But just wanted to flag that for you, that legislation was passed. The Blake decision decriminalized all drugs immediately. The legislature passed a bill that made it a misdemeanor, but only until 2023. And so the idea is that they'll set up substance abuse treatment opportunities, which I think all of us are in full support of, but we've got to make sure that we're not taking away tools from law enforcement to keep our community safe, when sometimes the only alternative, the only option in certain situations is to keep someone safe from themselves and keep the community safe as well. But anyway, I know you've got a lot of business on the agenda, so I'll end it there, subject to any questions from you, Madam Mayor, or any of the council members.
Now, for me, I'm just shaking my head and thinking, what the heck are they thinking?
Yes. There was a lot of head shaking this legislative session, but be happy to discuss that with folks if they have any specific concerns. But yes, generally, I think there were some very concerning things that happened in this legislative session, and I think we've only started, and we will only start to see the impacts in the near term, and there's a lot of ticking time bombs out there that are going to be impacting our communities and our cities in the years to come.
Yeah, well, and also thank you for everything you did to get us the funding that we needed.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And again, really appreciate it. Senator Honeyford and Representative Chandler, also representing the 15th district. They were in on the fight as well. And like I said, I know Don made a couple of key calls at some key moments, and again, Russ Carlson just helping me understand some of the needs of the city, of our neighbors and friends, talking over a virtual backyard fence.
Yep. All right. I think Don had something to say.
Yes, I just wanted to double down and thank you, Jeremy, for the hard work you did, and just really a heads up, thinking on your feet kind of all. That's what we need from our representatives. And Senator Honeyford was a delight to work with. Please pass to him our thanks. You're doing a great job. And on behalf of the staff, I want to say thanks.
Well, you're welcome, Don. Thank you for that. And yes, absolutely. Senator Honeyford did a heavy lift over there in the Senate at the last minute. Originally, the project was in the House capital budget, but not in the Senate capital budget. And he obviously has a lot of pull in that reconciliation process, and he was able to get it included and then across to the governor's desk. So it's my honor to serve, and I appreciate all the great work you're doing in the city of Selah, and keeping all these great projects going and growing in our wonderful community.
Thank you.
Rob?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hi, Jeremy. Representative Defoe, let me be formal there. I'm going to pose a question, and I think I might know the answer to it, but I don't want to presume too much. And irrespective of what the answer is, I'd like to politely suggest something for you and your caucus to perhaps work on. Of course, we're still in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the governor is still exercising quite broad emergency powers. My question is whether there is anything currently pending or being proposed by either caucus in either house to potentially amend or restrict those powers as they currently are codified under RCW chapter 43.06. And my recommendation to you, irrespective of whatever the answer is, would be perhaps that you may want to, during all your free time in between sessions, take a look particularly at RCW 43.06.220 subpart H. That's basically, as I'm sure you know, the catch-all that basically allows the governor to order anything and everything any governor may want to do anytime any governor declares anything to be an emergency. And I'm curious, as I said through my question, and then I'll be quiet, as to whether there's anything that's percolating over there in Olympia as to actually perhaps reopening the books and putting some more checks and balances, I guess I'll say, into these emergency powers.
Yes, there are a lot of things that are in the works. Myself and several of my colleagues on the Republican House caucus, and I know some folks in the Senate as well. We had 5-6 different bills that we put forward that would have changed significantly the governor's emergency authority, the emergency powers, and the statutes that you've cited. They were drafted with the understanding that this would be for a tsunami, an earthquake, a volcano, the types of natural disasters and emergencies that we had historically experienced in Washington state. Those powers were drafted around that concept, and didn't anticipate that what would happen would be this never-ending state of emergency. We're in a crisis, but we stopped being in an emergency a long time ago. And so in my personal view and my political view and my service view, I think we're well past those boundaries. The challenge, of course, has been to get our friends from the other side of the aisle to go along with those bills. We did have one House Democrat who co-sponsored one of the bills that I was a part of that limited the emergency authority to no more than 30 days without legislative approval. That one never got a hearing. Now I just saw a letter passed today. I mean, we're still active on this, writing letters to the governor's office and to the different agencies on a regular basis, saying this is no longer an emergency. We need to have the legislature weigh in on this. The legislature is closest to the people. I mean, we're the ones who represent our communities. We understand the challenges that are being faced, and however well-intentioned an executive, whether it's this one or another one might be, you're not going to have the same level of familiarity with what's going on in the local business communities, and those voices need to be heard, and they haven't. They've been ignored and they've been silent. So I share your concern, I share your frustration, and that's definitely something that needs to get addressed, and I'll keep talking about it. I know other folks in the legislature will continue talking about it. What we did here, in my view, was an excuse, but the justification for why none of these bills were acted upon with our friends from the other side of the aisle who agree that this authority is just too broad. I mean, it's the broadest in the country at this point. And so they said, well, we'll deal with this, but we want to deal with it when it's not so hot, when it's not a front burner issue. So we'll be happy to support your bills, next session after the crisis is over. But color me skeptical. I mean, if this state of emergency hasn't passed, after 30, 60 days, when we're here in month 15, 14, what's to stop it from being another year? I think, some folks are getting quite comfortable with their expansive authority, and that's concerning to me. So we'll see what the response is, what the dialogue is when we go back into session next January. We're out of session right now, so there isn't anything we can do short of continuing to call for a special session that specifically addresses the emergency powers and reforms those, because I agree with you, it's well overdue. And nice to see you. For those of you that don't, Rob's mom was my vice principal at Davis High School back in the day. So I have a lot of respect for her and the family. So anyway, nice to see you, Rob, and thanks for that question. It's an important issue. It was something that was debated and discussed and just never saw the light of day because the Speaker of the House controls the bills that come forward, and she was not interested in having that debate because I think they know that they would lose the debate. I mean, regardless of what you think of the restrictions themselves, just the process is fundamentally flawed. And again, to be the broadest emergency power of any state in the country, I mean, California is more restrictive. New York is more restrictive. You're seeing bipartisan limitations on the governor in those, states that are pretty blue. And yet, for some reason, in Washington State, we're not able to get any support or cooperation, at least in the numbers we need from our friends on the other side of the aisle.
If you think my mom was tough in the classroom, you should have tried growing up underneath her. But we look forward to seeing you around town. I look forward to interacting with you again socially. It's been too long since you and I have been able to do that.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. And my office there across from City Hall is open. My legislative assistant is back in town, and we're still full time, even though the legislature's out of session. So you'll be seeing us around town, and got some Army Reserve duty that I need to make up here. But short of that, looking forward to seeing everyone and all my friends and neighbors in Selah.
Sounds great, sir. Thanks.
Roger, were you just waving? Do you have a question?
No question, just
Okay.
waving goodbye to Jeremy.
Right on. Hi, Roger. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Hey, getting to know our business, we have none. Communications. Rob?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're presently conducting the regular meeting portion of today's session. State law does not require a non-charter code city, such as the city of Selah, to allot time for public comment during a regular meeting between its mayor and city council. Historically, the city has chosen to allot time for public comments during its regular meetings, subject to a maximum of 2 minutes per commenter and common sense standards of decorum. Recently, those standards of decorum have been increasingly infringed. Those wishing to offer public comments during a regular meeting must comply with the following process and standards. Each commenter must state his or her full name and whether he or she is a registered voter residing within the city limits of Selah. Each commenter is limited to one comment and a maximum duration of 2 minutes per regular meeting. A maximum of 30 minutes per regular meeting will be allotted for all public comments. Comments must be constructive and respectful. No profanity, insults, defamation, or direct or implied personal attacks will be allowed. Criticism of city policy is allowed, but personal criticism of any individual is not allowed. The public comment process is not a question and answer process. Also, each commenter should speak solely for himself or herself, rather than purporting to speak on behalf of others, repeating verbatim or nearly verbatim what another commenter has said, or repeating what a written document says. In-person comments will be heard from the podium in the order offered by commenters, and during the COVID shutdown, written comments will be read aloud in the order received by city staff, and telephonic comments may also be heard. The mayor may cut off any in-person or telephonic comment that he or she deems inappropriate, and city staff at the direction of the mayor may disallow or modify any written comment that is deemed inappropriate. These standards are subject to revision. Those who infringe the applicable standards may be barred from offering public comments during future regular meetings. Public comment during regular meetings is not the exclusive method to communicate with the mayor or city council on any topic. People may send letters or emails, leave voicemails, or request in-person meetings to or with the mayor or any member or members of the city council. The mayor and each member of the city council has personal discretion over how and when he or she might respond to emails, letters, voicemails, and requests for in-person meetings.
Thank you. Monica, do we have any written comments tonight?
Madam Mayor, there were no comments submitted.
Thank you. Written, we have none. Proclamations and announcements. Our proclamation tonight is declaring May 2021 as Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas mental health is essential to everyone's health and well-being, and whereas approximately 1/2 of chronic mental illness begin by the age of 14, 3/4 by the age of 24, and 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health problem in any given year. And whereas suicide is the 9th leading cause of death in the United States and the 2nd leading cause of death among young adults. 90% of people who die by suicide have an underlying mental illness. And whereas long delays, sometimes decades, often occur between the time symptoms first appear and when individuals get help. And whereas early identification and treatment can make a difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery. And whereas it is important to maintain mental health and learn the symptoms of mental health in order to get help when it is needed. And whereas every citizen and community can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma that for too long have surrounded mental illness and discouraged people from getting help. And whereas public education and civic activities can encourage mental health and help improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental illness. Now, therefore, I, Sherry Raymond, Mayor of the City of Selah, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Mental Health Awareness Month in the City of Selah to shine a light on mental illness and fight stigma, provide support, educate the public, and advocate for equal care. And be it further resolved that all citizens, businesses, schools, and community organizations are encouraged to take the number stigma-free pledge at www.nami.org/stigma-free in observance of Mental Health Month, dated this 11th day of May 2021. Consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. Should any council member request that any item on the consent agenda be considered separately, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and become part of the regular agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll
A
second.
second.
It's been moved to approve by Kevin, second by Jackie. All those in favor? And opposed? It's unanimous. Monica, please read the consent agenda.
Approval of minutes, April 27, 2021 council meeting, and approval of claims and payroll.
Thank you. Public hearings, Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Your item L1 is a public hearing to consider the City of Selah's Planning Commission's recommendation and accompanying ordinance adopting the City of Selah's comprehensive update of its Shoreline's master program that's required by the Washington State Department of Ecology. The ordinance rescinds all previous versions, provides for servability, and establishes an effective date of the ordinance. This is a state requirement and mandated item that we adopt. The Department of Ecology has reviewed and approved all of the draft language and found it true and correct, as well as the Planning Commission has reviewed it. Staff recommends that you hold the required public hearing and adopt the ordinance later on in the agenda.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
So we are now going to open up for a public hearing. Council, do you have questions of Jeff? I don't see anybody raise their hand. This is also open to the public. If the public has any questions on this particular item and they want to ask a question, I think, Monica, can they raise their hand on that one?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
It'll show on the screen. Okay.
Yes.
I don't see any of the public raising their hands. Council, you have no questions of Jeff for this? Okay, we will now close the public hearing. Mr. Peters, you're up next for the Planning Commission's recommendation.
So thank you, Madam Mayor, again. This is L2. These two public hearings are actually related to each other. They're almost one and of the same. The City of Selah's Shoreline's master program has elements of it that require change and adoption to our existing critical areas ordinance, which are those areas outside of the shoreline's jurisdiction that might have wetlands and other things. So this public hearing is to go over those changes to the city of Selah's critical areas ordinance, which is then supported by our master program that you've already just held your public hearing on. And again, we just request that you hold the required public hearing and then adopt the accompanying ordinances later on in this agenda.
Thank you, Jeff. We will now open this up for a public hearing. And this is also open to the public. If you have questions, you can raise your hand. Council, anybody have any questions on this? Seeing no hands raised, and I don't see any from the public. We will now close the public hearing. Thank you, Jeff. Under general business, new business, we have none, and old business, we have none. Resolutions, Mr. Henney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item N1 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a task order 2021-01 between the city of Selah and HLA Engineering and Land Surveying to provide engineering and land surveying services for the Crusher Canyon wastewater collection system improvements. It is our intent to design this sewer line this year with construction in 2022. And we're not sure when the legislative appropriation will be available, but I'm sure that'll come out soon when they get this bill out and published. So that's it. I'm asking for approval, move forward on this project.
Cliff?
Madam Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to sign 2021-01 between the city of Selah and HLA Engineering and Land Survey.
Thank you, Cliff.
I second that.
So we have a motion to approve by Cliff, a second by Russ. Roll call, Monica?
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mattson,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Resolution N2, Mr. Henney.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution N2 is the resolution authorizing the mayor to sign task order 2021-05 between the city of Selah and HLA Engineering and Land Surveying to conduct an irrigation water right change/transfer feasibility study. We've talked about this a little bit in the past where we would like to do an analysis to see the possibilities of acquiring additional water rights from the local irrigation districts. There's 2 in the area. And to do an analysis, see what's available and what process we have to go through with the state agencies to acquire that so we can expand water rights for the summer season. So I'm asking that council authorize you to sign this task order.
Thank you, Joe.
Kevin, a move to approve the task order.
A second.
We have a motion to approve by Kevin, a second by Roger. Roll call, Monica?
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mattson,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Resolution N3, Mr. Henney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As everybody has been hearing, there is a expectation of several funding sources that would become available to cities and counties and states for transportation and other related needs. This particular one is a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign task order 2021-06 between the city of Selah and HLA Engineering and Land Surveying to prepare and submit the Rebuilding America Infrastructure and Sustainability and Equity Funding Application, RAISE. We tried this a year ago, and that was for the build application. Now they've come forth with a new title, new name for it. And so we would like to pursue this application to do this transportation analysis throughout town and look at this connection of Natchez over to I-82. So, pardon?
I'm sorry, Joe, if I could add to this, the mayor and I are in receipt of a letter from Senator Murray. There in the offing, we're looking at a significant amount of funding possibly coming out of the federal government. So what Joe's asking for here is really to reestablish that placeholder that we put out under the build application for the possibility of expanding East Natchez out to I-82. So what this effectively does is it maintains our request and requirement for this connection to continue, so we can be eligible for any funds that might come forward.
Jackie?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Joe, I'd just like to clarify that this does include the transportation study focusing on SR 823 and Southern Avenue also. Is that correct?
We'll look at everything within the city, and yeah, it'll all contribute to the analysis. And yeah.
Okay, and will that include, I'm sorry, may I ask another question, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Will that also include previous studies that have been conducted in regards to this connection, say from Natchez Avenue to I-82?
It'll include any and all relevant information that we can acquire that will pertain to this application and to justify our desired needs. Yeah, I'll put it that way.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Roger?
I move to approve.
So I have a motion to approve by Roger, a second by Cliff. Roll call, Monica?
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mattson,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Ordinances, Mr. Peters.
Let's see here. Thank you, Madam Mayor. These next two items are going to be 01 and 02. And just to shorten up the presentation on these are the accompanying ordinances that actually adopt into law the City of Selah's amended Shoreline's master program required by Department of Ecology that we received a grant for to do these updates, as well as 02, which is going to be the City of Selah's amended critical areas ordinance, which goes along with that Shoreline's master program. We recommend that you adopt both of these ordinances. And if there's any questions, I'll answer them at this time.
Thank you, Jeff. Council, do we have a motion to approve?
Kevin, move to approve the Shoreline Master Ordinance 01.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to approve by Kevin, a second by Roger. Roll call, Monica?
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mattson,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And Mr. Peters, O2.
O2 is the City of Selah's amended critical areas ordinance. And again, staff is recommending approval on this item. If there's any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Thank you. Cliff?
I move the council adopt the accompanying ordinance revising the ordinance 02, the critical areas ordinance.
I second.
It's been moved to approve by Cliff, second by Jackie. Roll call, Monica?
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mattson,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. O3, Mr. Novobelsky.
Okay, I'm calling in on a cell phone tonight, so I want to verify that you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Good. So what you have before you is a budget adjustment for the 2021 budget in the amount of $56,354. The largest part of this is that annually we're reviewed by the Department of Labor and Industries for our industrial insurance coverage on our employees in case there's any accidents. They notified us this year that our rates, unfortunately, and not just us, I assume this is statewide, because it's based upon job classifications as well as injury history at a particular location. And I believe Selah has been fairly accident-free. But unfortunately, they determined that law enforcement L&I rates needed to go up 31% on the employer side. Fire went up 28%. All operations, which is people working out in the field, which is primarily public works, went up 20%. And then the remaining category is called administration or office staff, and that went up 14%. So that total increase was $32,138. In this budget adjustment, I've only selected the larger departments, which is approximately $30,000. The second largest item in this ordinance is an award by the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee to the Selah National Little League to do improvements at McGonigal Park. As I understand it, they're going to put some artificial turf out there, and that amounts to $15,703. The third item was a carryover where the state auditor started our audit last year. They did a two-part audit. First was financial, and the second was what they call an accountability audit, which is legal compliance. And they did not complete their audit by year end. And due to their working into January, and it might even have gone February, there was an expenditure we had to make of $5,904, which was not contained in the current budget. The final item making up this total was for capital type expenditures in the police department, which are not currently built into our 2021 budget. And that was to purchase 6 intoximeters and 2 citation printers for police vehicles. and that was $4,898. So I would welcome any questions.
Looks like there's no questions. Council, we have a motion. Roger,
I move to approve.
I second.
we have a motion to approve by Roger, a second by Jackie. Roll call, Monica.
Councilman Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilman Mattson,
Yes.
Councilman Peterson,
Yes.
Councilman Bell,
Yes.
Councilman Costello,
Yes.
Councilman Carlson,
Yeah.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Public appearances, we have none. Reports and announcements. Chief Lang, are you still with us?
Yes, Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, we can.
All right, thank you for starting with me. I know I have another meeting here in a minute.
Yeah.
So just to let everybody know that our call volume has gone up significantly as of late. And I'm contributing that to the COVID, lessening of the restrictions of COVID. During COVID, a lot of people weren't going to the hospital because they didn't want to or couldn't because of restrictions at the hospital. And now we're starting to see a lot more of our non-emergent calls coming for rides to the hospital. So it's gone up quite a bit, back to normal. The county radio users committee was granted $100,000 from the state out of the state budget to do a project which affects us, which would be great for our radio communications around the valley. The COVID grant that we got last year, and we bought the decon machine for all of our stations and equipment, has been modified, and they're not requesting that we had to pay our match, which we already paid. So they're giving us back our match from last year's grant, which is good. I think that's about $4,000. And then last but not least, the annual report should be completed for your first meeting in June. Anybody have any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Chief. Thanks. Chief Chrisman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, Mr. Wayman. I've got a ton of paper on my desk. I'm trying to figure out what's the most important thing to share with you tonight. Representative Defoe talked about the legislation that has been pretty impactful. There are a number of documents that have made its way to the governor's desk. He just signed this morning a law that makes it no longer legal for courts to suspend driver's licenses in the state of Washington for not paying fines. So those drivers who have a habitual record of being involved in collisions, not paying their tickets, they'll no longer be suspended. The problem with that is there's about 46,000 people that have had their license suspended because they didn't pay court-imposed fines for non-criminal moving violations. And a lot of those folks are also not insured. And so we see them in collisions with other people and they don't carry insurance on their cars. Just a lot of problems with this entire process. A lot of the cases, as our representative mentioned, the Blake decision for simple possession is changing the way that we're dealing with people who are involved with drugs, possession of drugs, and how we can process them either through the courts or get them into rehabilitation services. So a lot of change in law enforcement and public safety as a whole. Pursuits now will be restricted to just Class A felonies and a couple of Class B felonies. All others will have to be terminated by law. And then the decertification process, there's a deep bill that talks about police officers' actions, and it's changing some of our policy and procedures. So this is a lot of change in public safety. Like Chief Lang mentioned, our calls for service have increased significantly. And a lot of those calls are crisis related calls. People who are suicidal, people who are, as I think I've mentioned in the past, have pending issues with being evicted from their homes if they haven't paid rent during the COVID epidemic. One of the things that I have been talking to the mayor about and mentioned to Mr. Wayman is, looking towards the future with regards to utilizing something along the lines of an embedded social worker within the police department, like many other police agencies are doing right now. I'm interested in seeing some of the Treasury reports with regards to some of the federal funds that are coming out and how we might be able to leverage that as well. We have our 2 new officers over at this Criminal Justice Training Commission. This is their week 2, and I'm just happy to report that everything is going very well for them, and they'll be there for the next 14 weeks, 16 weeks total. And so we're looking forward to getting them back and getting them plugged in and out on the street as well. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those.
Hey, Keith, this is Don. Fentanyl, was that included as well?
Yes, sir.
Just so everybody understands, I had a very interesting conversation with Captain Jay Seeley from the Yakima PD, and I imagine Dan would concur. We have a real problem in the valley here with fentanyl, and we're looking at overdoses in numbers that I don't think we've ever seen. Would that be correct, Dan?
Absolutely correct. And for those of you who don't know, our officers are carrying Narcan, which is a reversal drug for opioid overdoses. They're at an epidemic number in the state of Washington, and certainly we're seeing our fair share of it as well. The other thing that I don't think gets a lot of traction in the news is exposures to microdoses of fentanyl have caused injury and death to first responders, whether it be police officers, fire, EMS. Once that fentanyl, if it's a powdered form, gets into the air and they inhale it, we've lost officers to that. So it's just one of those problems that we're aware of. We're also not testing for that in-house anymore just because of how toxic it is.
Thank you, Chief, for that doom and gloom there.
Debbie Downer, right?
Yeah, you'll be last next week.
Anytime.
Okay, Mr. Henney.
Well, we're busy. You can see that by how we routinely have a large number of AISs in the council packet from this building as a whole. We're busy still painting crosswalks and parking stalls. And we just got a lot going on. We're gearing up at a meeting today, and I think the 24th of this month, there's going to be a meeting between us and the school district and the contractor that they'll be getting started on the public improvements in the right-of-way on Bartlett and North 3rd for the John Campbell School. We've been inspecting sewer lines, and we'll be starting the water lines up at the Graft development there off of Crusher Canyon. So there's got a lot going on. Other than that, I'll entertain any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Joe said, we've been pretty busy. We've been really trying to get all of those grant applications and all the supporting letters from all of our different participants and council members, as some of you might have signed some of those letters for us. So we're glad to almost be done with that process. We are still working forward on bringing to you, I think it's next month, the capital facility plan element, and possibly the comp plan element before year's end. That is also it's part of the comprehensive plan, but it's just a brief snippet of what the full capital facilities plan is that we'll adopt. Also, then I believe next month we're bringing you the 6-year transportation improvement program for the approval. And then at your next meeting, Joe will usually brings forward all the list of the projects that are on that 6-year transportation improvement plan in case the council members want to change some of the order when we get to the actual public hearing. As far as planning goes, the Planning Commission is still busy. We're looking at some amendments to Title 10 regarding drainage on single-family properties and other properties throughout town, and our stormwater element and plan. We're also have a couple of short plats that the Planning Commission has either worked through or is and have been approved or are in the process of going to be hearing those shortly as well. And then we still have our comprehensive plan update to bring back to the process, and that we were working on with our consultant prior to COVID-19 hitting. So that will probably also be sometime before the end of the year. We'll get that comp plan all updated and through the Planning Commission. Building has been going well. We're actually, as far as our budget goes, we are over the projected amount that we had put in our budget for revenue. So keeping our fingers crossed, knocking on wood, hopefully that will continue as we continue to see prices on all sorts of lumber literally going to the roof. So other than that, code enforcement is out now that things have lifted a little bit with COVID-19, and doing her job, both removing signage as well as also doing her normal duties and getting people to clean up their properties. So other than that, I think that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Jeff. Mr. Novoselski.
Just 1 minute, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
I just got a reminder that I guess for some reason I was muted. So I'd like to point out that if you go to our website, selahwa.gov, and at the menu on the right-hand side, departments, you can go to finance, and then you can go down to financial information. Every month, we update our cash and investment balances and our year-to-date revenue and expenditure reports. The other day on the 10th, we received our most recent remittance from the county treasurer for property taxes. Every month, the treasurer, throughout the year, of course, collects property tax money. 10 days after the end of the month, they're required to remit that to the city. The way property taxes work, the first half is due in April and the second half in October. So this, of course, was one of our large payments. The amount we received the other day was $1,133,000, well, year to date. So anyhow, that was $138,000 more than last year, or 14%. And that doesn't mean that we're going to end the year with more property tax than we budgeted, but that just means people are very current on meeting their property tax obligations. And I view that as a very favorable indicator. In regards to sales tax, through April, we're currently about $74,000 more than what we had for the first 4 months of last year. That's primarily due to construction activity in the community. And yeah, the way it's going to end this year, we're again going to be very healthy in regards to our sales tax receipts. And I would go ahead.
I'd just like to add caution. Dale and I talked about this. The increased tax revenues aren't necessarily related to the idea that more items are being sold. It's that the cost of those items have gone up. Therefore, our percentage has gone up. So I think we're looking at inflation right in the face. It's not going to be reported until maybe 3 or 4 months from now. But we should be pleased with our numbers, of course, but cautious in that these may be related to economic inflation. I'm sorry, Dale, go ahead.
And that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Hey, Council, Kevin.
Just to report that the Yakima Convention Center expansion project, they're having an open house this Friday from noon to 3 o'clock. There's a ribbon cutting that goes on at 10. I've seen the images. I haven't seen inside of it yet, but we've seen the images, and it's quite an expansion. It has a lot of space. It's going to increase the amount of conventions that can come to Yakima. So if anyone's interested, this Friday from noon to 3, it will be an open house. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you noticed, there was some activity at the Aquatic Center this past week. And it's great news. The high school swim team had a meet there. So that's additional revenue to SPRSA for that. So that's good news to help pay for some of our costs. But it also says that we're slowly opening up and following all the rules from the health department to proceed safely. And currently, when we open for public swim, we would be able to accommodate at 50%. So that's good. And what that equates to is just over 200 swimmers in the pool at one time. So good news on that front. The last item that I just wanted to bring up is we completed our training with our Robert's Rules of Order. And I would like to see us start utilizing those, especially on a meeting like tonight where we don't have any real debated issues, but we can get into the practice of we should be making a motion and having a second to it, and then call for questions or debate, not the opposite of that, debating before we have a motion. So that would be correct, Robert's Rules of Order, if I understand all that correctly. And I would just like to see us start doing that. I think it'll facilitate better discussions in the future if we do that. I said that was my last item, but I just remembered that I wanted to mention that we had our meeting with the Law and Justice Center Committee last week where Mike, Cliff, and the chief, we welcomed our mayor to participate with us and our 2 new members, Dick Graff and Lisa Gordon. So bringing them up to speed on where we're at, and our next meeting will be June 3rd. So moving forward. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Roger. Russ?
I don't have any report. I do have a thought, a request, or a question. A couple of meetings ago, we talked about how we could potentially have these meetings in person and still observe the rules. I do believe that there are cities holding in-person meetings. So wanting to know what it would take to research that and see what it would take for us to go about that, having these in person.
Monica, do you have some answers for that?
Sherry, if I could take that.
Go ahead.
We looked at that, and the square footage requirement that we need in order to accommodate that isn't available in our current council chamber. So the alternative that we looked at would be our civic center.
Right.
But we do not have the electronic recording devices, the necessary equipment to properly record the meeting. We would have to purchase equipment in order to accommodate it. So this current system, the way we're doing business with the Zoom is really the most efficient until we get into phase 4, as far as with the facilities that we have available to us at this time. So we did look at that. It really wasn't feasible.
The last email I saw was that there was an emergency order that didn't allow us to meet. But I think we did talk about the potential to purchase equipment, and I don't know that that would be too expensive. And I would I'd still be open to at least looking into that and see what it would cost.
Kevin?
Yeah, the cost was over $15,000 for the video recording equipment and the mic and the setup that we needed. So it surprised me because I'd asked Dawn to look into it, and it was over 15,000.
Yeah, and do you know if that is that equipment that could be used for multiple purposes later, or would that be a single use, Kevin?
I was looking that for the single use.
It could be used obviously for other occasions where we would want to transmit from the Civic Center. But in the case of the Civic Center, the requirement would be a lot more distancing for all the council members, as well as any attendees. And the distance requirements would really be a reach for the equipment to properly record everything.
And the other thing is we never know what our governor's going to do. He might change us into phase 4 in 2 weeks, and then we've spent that money for a recording system that we don't need. So, Roger?
Yes, I don't know this for sure, but I was told that Liberty Lake is conducting a hybrid meeting where all of the public attends in one room, and they just live stream it into that room on a big screen. It's very cheap to do that. So the only members of the council and staff would be in the actual chamber. Is that something we can at least explore and see if that's a possibility?
Madam Mayor, if I could speak for just a moment.
Go ahead.
Council members, while I understand your desire to meet in person to look at hybrid meetings and that kind of thing, logistically speaking, you're talking equipment, you're talking personnel who have to be trained on how to use that. This is a lot of time and expenditure, not to mention whether or not we can actually get the equipment in a timely manner. Right now, a lot of things are just not available, or they are on back order for months on end. We have the option of using Roy's audio visual. It would be in the ballpark of about $900 per meeting if we did it at the Civic Center. He has the mics, he can live stream it. But again, we still have to have staff who are monitoring to see if we have a public hearing and perhaps someone who's watching it online wants to comment on it or something like that. So logistically speaking, there's a lot to work out if we choose to pursue that. Just bear that in mind. It's been researched. I look at it periodically. The mayor and the city administrator and I have discussed this multiple times.
Thank you, Monica. Russ?
That's all. I think in person is highly valuable, and I think that there's sure absolutely some costs, but I think it's good to be in person while still observing those rules.
Thank you. Jackie?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Selah Chamber of Commerce held their general membership meeting last week, and Chief Chrisman was our speaker. We got to learn a lot of his law enforcement history, very interesting career, and we had a brief conversation on the Justice Center. Thank you very much, Chief Chrisman. That was a good informational talk that you gave. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Cliff?
Actually, I spent some time with Paul this last couple of weeks and appreciate his coming today and appreciate the mayor's proclamation that and hope that we as a community can really do something about removing the stigma and helping our friends and neighbors. And so I don't really have anything else to say.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
No report.
Thank you. Rob?
I have no public report, but I asked the council members to be watching their email over the next couple of days for some communications from me.
Okay, thank you. Don?
Okay, I'll start with our recreation department. We are in the midst of soccer signup, so it's a frenetic time for Mr. Shab and our new employees down there. We have hired an additional employee that we had in our budgets that we had postponed hiring because of the Wuhan virus restrictions. So that individual has been hired. Kelsey, I can't remember her last name, but a welcome addition. And Mr. Anderson will be joining Kelsey here as our Civic Center manager. So basically, we're re-energizing our Civic Center and our recreation programs and getting the kids out playing soccer and flag football and restarting events in our Civic Center. We're really looking forward to that. We're also looking forward to June 19th. We heard a little bit of this from Katrina Henkel on the Sip and Stroll, which will go on the same day as our auto show. And we're going to go full bore on that. We're really looking forward to have as many cars as possible. I believe our record is over 200 cars for this particular car show. I'm hoping that we can attract just as many. And we really would appreciate participation from our council members, your family, your friends, and everybody in Selah to come out and celebrate our American heritage of internal combustion. I sent out an email. I forwarded an email this last week containing an attachment that Joe Haney received from one of our suppliers of ductile material. Why did I do that? Well, it was not a good news letter. It was a letter that discussed the almost out of control increase in prices for ductile material. It used to be that we could order this particular material and get a quote on it, and it would be good for months at a time. Now it's only good for anywhere from 10 days or less. It's very difficult for a contractor to come in and bid on a sewer collection project and confidently give us a price on what it would cost to complete the project, because the material is a moving object for them to capture. So it would be very difficult for us to get anybody that would be competent to make bids. So I asked Joe to look into the possibility of securing ductile material. We have a couple of projects that we're going to either kick off this year or early next year that we're going to need a lot of material on. And this is indicative of not just ductile material. It's all materials related to construction at this time. It's I want to say extraordinary time with regard to the costs of these materials. And we're watching it closely, and we're going to want to communicate to you the situation, because it will affect our ability to complete our projects, whether they be sewage collection, water treatment, a law and justice center. It's going to affect everything that we do with regard to construction. We are not stopping our progress, because when you postpone up one project, next year's projects double up. We can't do that. We have sidewalks to fix. We have streets to fix. We have sewer collection, sewage treatment plant, water department projects. We have police equipment to purchase. All these things, everything that I just mentioned, whether it be raw material, components, or finished material, it's all going up. And it's fortunate that our revenues are going up, because I'm afraid that those revenues are going to be eaten up by the increase in costs for those materials. I know this is bad news, but I think that we're not the only municipality that's facing it. Everybody from the individual homeowners to businesses to large industries to municipalities, we're all going to be dealing with this, and we need to be light on our feet and grab opportunities when we can, stock up on materials without hoarding it, and be prepared for what I think might be some tough times. With that, Madam Mayor, that's all I've got. I'm sorry.
Thanks. I have a couple things tonight. As a council member, when we drive into Selah, I hope that you feel that this is your home and that you're part of taking care of it. We have an issue up at Volunteer Park that we have some kids who are not, we have little kids who pick at the material on the ground, the soft material, but we have big chunks of it pulled out of there. And I know that I go out to McGonigal to the Little League fields twice a week. And on my way back, I always pull into the park to see what's going on. And I would like all of us to take a little bit of that responsibility. When you're out driving around later in the evenings, just drive through there and see if there are older kids out there pulling up part of that surface. I don't know that those pieces are covered by our warranty.
Yeah, Sherry, they're not. And if I could add to that,
yeah,
for the council's sake, we have a wonderful surface and park out there that's been set up to allow for access to children in wheelchairs, children in walkers, and so on and so forth, strollers, etc. And it's imperative that that surface stays intact. And what we've got is we've got some vandalism, as Sherry's described, and that's not covered by warranty. There is some weather damage that they'll be glad to come out and fix, and the company that put it out has been great. They've come out and they've done repairs, but of course they won't be expected to do repairs for vandalism. So we've discussed cameras, but what are you going to do? Are you going to write a ticket to a kid that's picking at a surface? What we really need to do is pull together as a community, be vigilant, talk to folks, communicate with them, and let them know, hey, this is a really expensive proposition for us to maintain, and we're willing to do that for normal wear and tear, but please, please, please talk to your little ones and teach them the value of that park and why it is what it is. It is here for all the young ones, especially the young ones who need that special surface so they can get on that equipment and have fun, just like the kids that are highly mobile. So yeah, Sherry, 100%.
Yep.
And we're going to keep fixing it. We're not going to just let it go bad. But to heads up to the council, we may be asking you for money for that.
Roger?
Yes, right along with the security issue with that. I wanted to comment on you were suggesting that we maybe buy some materials that we can store right now. And it would be typical as supplies get extremely tight and volume cost goes up, that they're more susceptible to theft. So any proposal coming back to the council on that, I would appreciate knowing what we're going to do to secure any materials that we might be storing in that nature of potential theft anyway.
Yes, sir. Got it.
And then I just wanted to share an incident a couple of weeks ago that I had, and it ties right into mental health. As I was going home, I saw a man and a woman, and the man was probably 25 feet ahead of the woman, and it looked like they were arguing. They were back and forth with each other. So I pulled up, I slowed down by the lady, and I asked her if she was okay. And she had tears in her eyes, and she said, "Thank you for stopping." She said, "No," she says, "I'm fine. That's my son, and he is off his meds." She said, "I've gone to court and trying to get some help. I've called the police department to get some help. I've called mental health to get some help, and I can't get any." So it is an issue out there. And sometimes it just takes just a second to stop and ask somebody, "Are you okay?" So just kind of keep that in mind. It's just something that I think we all need to be aware of. Also, June 22nd to June 25th is the AWC conference. It is online. Please get a hold of Monica if you are going to join that, so she can get you signed up. And that is all I have.
Move to adjourn.
Was that you, Cliff? And you said?
Move to adjourn.
Oh, move to adjourn. Okay. So Cliff has moved to adjourn. Kevin has seconded it. All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, it's unanimous. We are now adjourned. Have a great evening.